Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
The Orlando Magic shot their shot with a blockbuster trade, but why now? And why Desmond Bane? Also, did OKC figure out the Indiana Pacers? And in another stunning trade, the Red Sox are trading away their all-star hitter. Again. I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
The NBA Finals are going on, but that's not going to stop the rest of the league from wheeling and dealing, from stealing the headlines in this one. It's the Orlando Magic making a big swing here. Desmond Bane headed to Orlando for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Cole Anthony, and 4 first-round picks. Philip Rossman-Reich from Locked On Magic joins me now. And Philip, the Magic have been a popular trade machine team over the last couple years. To get that player, to get them over the proverbial hump. Why Desmond Bane and why now?
Yeah, I mean, obviously now is the time. It's not just it's the offseason. It's the Magic are about to become very, very expensive. And as I think everybody is starting to understand with the new CBA and the new rules that govern teams, once you cross a certain threshold, it becomes very, very difficult to improve your roster. You kind of have to go backwards and take another few steps forward. And this was the last summer where the Magic really had some financial flexibility. Probably the biggest move the Magic make this summer is signing Paolo Banchero to a max extension. That was going to put them at least over the first apron in the 2026-27 season. Acquiring Desmond Bane probably puts them in the second apron, which is for the elite and the exclusive, but the Magic very clearly needed to make improvements to their roster. They had a 41-41 injury-filled season. They think they're close. Despite how much injuries they had and how they played, they think they're close to winning a championship. And so this was very much an all-in move. Let's establish our core. Let's kind of set our payroll for what it's going to be, and let's try and win a much weakened Eastern Conference.
So I think the logic is pretty intuitive there. Bane in particular, though, the Magic have been linked to any star who has been, rumored to be on the market over the last 18 months or so has been connected with Orlando. I think there's going to be some Magic fans who go, why didn't we aim our sights a little bit higher? Why Bane? Why is he the fit here, and how does he fit?
Yeah, I think most Magic fans were looking at point guards because very clearly the Magic kind of needed a lead ball handler and a playmaker, but the Magic, I think, kind of stuck to their philosophy. They don't want to take the ball out of Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner's hands. They've got 2 elite playmaking forwards. And I think the general philosophy from the Magic is let's find a shooter who can space the floor for them and someone who can alleviate but not take away all that playmaking responsibility. A lot of Magic fans, probably a lot of national media had Trae Young or LaMelo Ball on the list for the Magic, and they would have demanded the ball maybe a little bit too much. Desmond Bane is someone who can play off of these 2 star players as one of the elite catch and shoot players in the league, as well as take over and score for himself on occasion. He averaged 5 assists per game at least 5 assists per game in the last 2 seasons. He's someone that is a much better playmaker than I think people give him credit for. And while the Magic aren't going to rely on him to be their main playmaker, that's still going to be Paolo and Franz. Between Paolo, Franz, Bane, and Jalen Suggs, they have 4 guys who can attack the basket and score for themselves and hopefully create for others and create space for each other. That makes them a much more difficult core to handle and should make their offense a lot better than it was last year.
Yeah, the scoring and the shooting has been a major problem for the Magic over the last few seasons. We know they can defend, but they did have to give up plenty here. Cole Anthony being the young player that they had to put in this, 4 first-round picks. That is a lot to give up, okay? Kentavious Caldwell-Pope did not work out for the Magic the way that they had hoped he would. But so where does this put them then in the conversation in the Eastern Conference? How much does it elevate them? Understanding the Milwaukee Bucks in flux, the Boston Celtics going to be without Jason Tatum for most of the season. And who knows what's going to happen with teams like the Knicks and elsewhere in the East.
Yeah, I think that's ultimately the big question, because the Magic, I don't think they needed to keep up with the Joneses, but there's definitely a sense of if the Magic kind of run this back as they are, like, yeah, they could be the 4 or the 5 seed, but they're not competing for a championship. They're not competing with the top of the league. If you look at the Magic's record against teams with above 500 records over the last 2 seasons, among playoff teams, they are among the worst. They were really good at beating the bad teams. They were not always so great, even though they had some solid wins. They're not always consistent beating the good teams. And so I think the Magic, especially looking at the way they played in the playoffs, where most people looked at their 5-game series with the Celtics and said, oh, they played really well. They defended really well. They just couldn't score enough. I think the Magic kind of looked at that and said, that tells us we don't have enough. We don't need to change the core of what we're doing, but we don't have enough to compete with these teams. Last year, obviously, the Magic were injured. Paolo Banchero missed 2 months. Franz Wagner missed 20 games. Mo Wagner was out from Christmas until the end of the season. Jalen Suggs missed most of the back half of the season. He played only 35 games. I think there is a true belief within the Magic organization that if they were healthy, they would be the 4 seed, the 5 seed, the 6 seed. They would have been in the fight with Indiana and Milwaukee and Detroit for a spot in the playoffs. Yeah. This is them.
And look how that worked out for Indiana.
Worked out for Indiana. Exactly. And honestly, look at Indiana themselves. They have multiple guys who can attack off the dribble. They have multiple shooters. They have multiple ways to score on you. Orlando needed to find that diversity, needed to find another player that could ease those burdens, help them survive some of the injuries, and make them more responsive and more dynamic when it came to the playoffs.
You can stay up to date all year on the Orlando Magic by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Magic on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. You're Locked On Sports Today. Coming up, the Thunder might have finally figured out the Pacers. Before we get to that, the U.S. Open was won on a walk-off miracle putt. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. Track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. JJ Spawn pulled off one of the wildest U.S. Open finishes in recent memory. After starting with 5 bogeys in his first 6 holes, Spawn caught fire on the back 9 and drained a 64-foot bomb on 18 to clinch his first major championship. From nearly out of it to the only player under par, Spawn proved Oakmont may break your heart, but sometimes it breaks the scoreboard too. Over on the diamond, the Reds took down the Tigers.
Cowboy made a really good comment during the 8th inning rally where he said, the thing that's changed the most about this Reds team is it's not trying to hit 5-run home runs every at-bat. And I think there isn't anything that proves that more than Will Benson's sacrifice fly to tie the game up.
Yep.
I feel like when you have that moment is when you're starting to feel really good about the game. And then, of course, they go and score a couple more to take the lead. But Will Benson, who like you talked about, like he came up and he was just hitting everything under the sun out of the wall, over the wall. And now and now it's like, okay, look, I had to make adjustments. Mm-hmm. And that sac fly was exactly what the Reds needed in that moment.
And the Dodgers held off the Giants.
The New York Mets, for the first time this season, have been swept at the hands of the Tampa Bay Rays. And now a lot of questions surround this team. They are going to have to show us what they are made of. Injuries starting to hit this club. Kodai Senga going down last week. Pitching has been a huge strength for this team for a majority of the year. You saw it over the last couple of days. The cracks may be starting to form in the back half of this rotation. They continue to struggle to hit with runners in scoring position. Not sure it would have mattered losing 9-0, but 0 for 7 with runners in scoring position, left 12 men on base today. The Mets are supposed to be a World Series contender. They're supposed to be an NL East contender. They're going to have to dust themselves off and show us that fight. It is road series against the Braves and the Phillies this week. And if the Mets want us to take them seriously, if they want to show us that resiliency that has been their calling card for a large part of this season, this is the week for them to show us it.
The Oklahoma City Thunder might have finally figured out how to control the Indiana Pacers. Locked On Thunder host Rylan Stiles broke down OKC's blueprint for winning Game 5.
Okay, so the reason I wanted you to draw on the experience is because the Pacers don't have this part of it, right? I don't know what to make of it. So first of all, to react to something you said about the Furphy sub, usually like down 15, 4 minutes to go, Carlisle pulls his guys. Like every team in the league, I'm like, yep, it's time, right? I had fans being like, what's he doing? Why is he pulling these guys? And my initial reaction was like, duh, they're going to lose. And I'm like, wait, they literally did this like last round. Like I didn't even realize how like obscure it was given their history in the moment. Regardless, last year, the Pacers' first conference finals run, they beat the Bucks and they were up 3-1. And then they played the Knicks and it was 2-2 in that one. And that's the only comparable one. We'll get back to that. And then they got swept by the Celtics. And this year they were up 3-1, up 3-1, and up 3-1. So they only have one series in this scenario. And they lost game 5 and then won 6 and 7 against the Knicks. So on one hand, I'm like, okay, they do have the experience of like this. However, that series was the home team won every game until game 7. Whereas the Thunder have like the perfect blueprint of how this exact moment feels. So I wonder, just drawing on experiences, how much that can help the Thunder right now, especially because they have home court advantage. But I also think the Pacers know they can win game 7s on the road, and they've won on the road at every series they've played in this entire playoff. So it's hard to find mental edges. And again, you can search for them all you want. You can talk about experience and Siakam and Caruso and all this stuff. But it's like, dude, it's the finals. Like, again, you just don't know what the moment's going to do to guys, right? You know, do you like how many airball threes were there in the last game between both teams? 5, probably, right?
There was a draft, a little open window action there in the old field house.
And it just, it's the finals, man. Like, you feel it. You just feel it, you know?
And I think that when you look at it, one thing the Thunder were able to learn was just, it's so hard to close out a series in game 6. Like, obviously it was good for them to win in game 5 of that Denver series just because like you want to win every single playoff game, but especially to win game 5 and they have the chance to close out the series. And then seeing this Denver team who's running on fumes after, you know, the war of attrition they went through against the Clippers and now the Thunder, and just see how they got up for that game number 6 and how like nobody's going to roll over for you in the NBA playoffs. Like they're also trying to win an NBA championship. The Thunder are going to have a situation here where they should come out with a sense of urgency like you haven't really seen except for the fourth quarter of game number 4. And that's been an issue with this young Thunder team, is like maintaining the level of intensity required to win a championship, even in series where they've swept. Like they swept New Orleans last year, and again, last year's team much different. But I mean, they played with their food a little bit early in that series, and then if you just look at this year's series, you had game 1 against the Grizzlies where you have a historic blowout, and game 2 you blow them out again. Game 3, first game on the road, you messed around a little bit, and you got down 20-something points, and then John Morant goes out. And you're able to make that comeback to win game 3 and still sweep. But game 3 and 4 were tight games, and then we mentioned the game 1 mishap against both Denver and Indiana, which you felt pretty good about your chances heading into those game 1s, and yet here you sit down 0-1 in the series. And then against Minnesota, there wasn't really the pushback other than the blowout game number 3, which anytime you get beat by 40-something points, it was due from a lack of showing up with the proper juice to win a road playoff game. So the Thunder now, I think, having seen how hard it is to close out series on the road, they're going to have to be fully focused on getting a game 5 win. I think that game 5 would decide this series, because I just think that it'd be incredibly hard for OKC to stave off elimination game 6 in Indiana. And I think that it'd be incredibly hard for Indiana once you've relinquished not just the series lead, but now you're behind 3-2 to win 2 in a row against the Thunder. Now, not impossible for either thing to happen, just incredibly hard to where the odds would dramatically shift to like 90% of the winner of game 5.
Alas, here we are. Quite the series. We were closer to it than any of the experts, as we expected, Rylan. Both of these, the Thunder are already, right, the farthest they've ever gotten, because they only won one game in 2012, right?
So, and only one game in 2012.
The Pacers won 2 in 2000. Massive game 5. Absolutely massive. The Pacers
biggest
won
game in franchise history, folks. We'll say
all around.
This is our John Corrales bit now. This is the biggest game in franchise history, just like it's the best win of the Celtics season, everyone.
Stay up to date all year on the Oklahoma City Thunder by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Thunder on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, the Boston Red Sox have made another seismic trade. Rafael Devers is heading to San Francisco after some bad blood with the Boston Red Sox boiled over. Locked On Red Sox host Gabby Holbert breaks down the controversy, the trade, and where Boston goes from here.
Wow. That's the biggest word that pops in my head when I think about this Rafael Devers situation right now, because with where this team is at and the chemistry that seemed to have been forming, there obviously was a lot going on behind the scenes that we as Red Sox fans didn't know and didn't hear about. And it all really did start back in spring training when the Red Sox front office kind of approached Devers and said, you know, we need you to be the DH. You're not going to play third base anymore because now we have Alex Bregman here and he's going to be our starting third baseman. And it kind of blindsided Devers because seemingly the front office didn't really give him any sort of notice about the fact that they were going to go out and be on the third base market this offseason and be on the hunt for somebody to play that position. And then when Alex Bregman gets here, the Red Sox are like, oh, by the way, hang up your glove. You're not playing in the field anymore. So that was a little bit of a slap in the face to Devers, who got very infuriated with the front office and basically said, look, you put me in a really bad spot. You didn't communicate this well enough with me that you want me to be the DH. And at the time, I definitely sympathized with Devers in that regard, because it really isn't fair to blindside a player like that and say, you know, by the way, we need you to be the DH. So obviously he wasn't happy about that. That definitely sparked some tension between Devers and the Red Sox front office at that point to begin with. And then he started to settle down a little bit and started to adapt to the fact that he was playing DH. Obviously had a really terrible stretch offensively to start the season, but then he started to really pick things up, and he is having a fantastic offensive season right now for what you would want to get from your designated hitter. But then when Tristan Casas went down with his season-ending injury, the Red Sox approached Devers and said, can you play first base? And he said no. He said, I will not play in the field. And he actually expressed to the media frustrations with Craig Breslow, basically saying the Red Sox haven't handled things well. There's a lot of miscommunication between me and them. And the role that he had on the team was obviously not something that he was ever on the same page with the front office about. And while it seemed like things may have blown over, more and more reports are talking about how the front office, including Alex Cora, were getting increasingly frustrated with Devers over the fact that he refused to do what they needed him to do. And apparently, according to a lot of different sources, the players were also getting frustrated with Devers.
The average baseball fan is not going to feel bad for Red Sox fans. They suffered for a long time, and then they didn't. And they won, and they won, and they won. And even when they weren't winning World Series, they were winning enough. But over the last few years, it has been brutal. You trade Mookie Betts for reasons, and now you start to build back, and you end up with another incredible player, not Mookie Betts level, but still an all-star. And you trade him again for reasons. It may be the world's smallest violin that baseball fans are playing, but it's a song. It's something, because this just kind of sucks. And finally, Grant Holmes pitched the game of his life against the basement-dwelling Rockies. 15 strikeouts, a no-hitter going into the sixth, and the Braves still walked away with a 10-1 loss. The bullpen collapsed. The offense disappeared, and what should have been a career highlight turned into a rout. Baseball, maybe any sport, can be incredibly cruel. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up, can OKC deliver the knockout punch against the Pacers? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.